The Israeli military is advancing Operation Rising Lion. Earlier today, the IDF struck what is identified as a communication center used for military purposes by the Iranian armed forces. Now, reports indicate the target was an Iranian state broadcasting station that was live on air at the time of the strike. Not long afterward, Israel intercepted another barrage of Iranian missiles. Joining us now with insights on these developments is U.S. Senator Kevin Cramer of North Dakota. He serves on 4 Senate committees, including the Armed Services Committee. Senator Cramer, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you, Tony.
Well, Senator, I know you're a strong supporter of Israel. We've talked about the situation in the Middle East multiple times. Your reaction to what has unfolded in the last few days?
Well, first of all, my reaction to Israel taking this step is you had to do it. They had to do it. Nobody is on the clock quite like Israel when it comes to the acquisition of nuclear weapons by Iran. So I don't blame them a bit for doing it. I'm grateful to see President Trump's strong support for it. I'm equally grateful, Tony, to see that we haven't risked any human lives, American lives, in the effort. That said, Israel has to know that we have their backs. The other thing I don't want to say necessarily surprising, but the magnitude of it is in that Israel has been immensely effective in their attacks. They had a very specific and have a very specific plan, a very specific strategy. They took out the ground-to-air missile system, the air defenses over Iran, and now they're just flying wherever they want and have complete control of the skies over Iran. And it's so impressive that I've got to believe that there are a lot of frenemies and enemies in the Middle East and throughout the world looking at that and knowing that those are F-16s, F-35s, F-15s, and other great American technology, and thinking these guys are better at this than we thought. So I think it's good for peace throughout the world.
Yeah, I would agree with you, and I would add to that, Senator Cramer, that Israel did this, and they initiated this on their own. I know that there was some hesitancy, and they had been waiting because I think they wanted to do it in concert with the United States. The United States, maybe doing some, well, it's not clear what, if anything, the United States is doing yet. I know we have resources moving that way, and as you pointed out, it's American equipment. But this was the Israeli defense system, the IDF, their Air Force, that did this. And the world has to be taking note of this.
Well, I would sure think so. I know I am, and I think the United States is. But certainly, certainly the region is, Tony. And this is what's so impressive to me. You look back to when even Barack Obama, or even go all the way back to Jimmy Carter, when the back and forth between peace through strength policies of Republicans and acquiescence and just sort of thrown up your hands, if you will, by Democrats, going back to Jimmy Carter. We finally have a moment, I believe, when you've seen diplomacy work under President Trump's first term, sets the stage, granted with 4 years off, but then sets the stage for what's happening now. And I just think that the freedom-loving, civilized Arab world is looking at this going, yep, we want to be with these guys over here, not those guys over there. And isolating Iran this way, I think, has tremendous benefit for peace in the region.
So did the Israeli military intelligence suggest that the window of opportunity was closing, and that's why they had to move now?
I think that's really clear. When you had, of course, the 60-day negotiating period that Donald Trump had initiated, and that ran out. When you had the International Atomic Energy Commission Council saying, "Wait a minute, these guys are out of compliance," and this is the United Nations saying this, as you know, and then their intel, saying that they have as much as maybe 9 bombs worth of enriched uranium. They clearly couldn't wait any longer for their own good. While others were more patient, including the United States, Israel understandably had to take matters into their own hands and demonstrated that they're more than capable of doing that.
What would you say is victory coming out of this? What does that look like?
Yeah, so that's a really important question, Tony. I just don't think you can leave the regime in place at this point. At this point, you've poked the bear so hard that if you leave the bear there, you're probably always going to have to look over your shoulder. The other thing is, I think they have to take out Bordeaux. I just think whether it's them or whether it's the United States, and God knows the last thing the American people want is for us to engage in another war. But I think you have to remove all capabilities, use of nuclear weapons capabilities, and the only way to do that is to take it all out, literally, physically, with bombs. Now, if in the short term here, the Iranian leadership says we give up, we'll step down, and then we encourage and back the freedom-loving Iranian people, that would be great. I just don't see that happening.
I agree with you. I don't see that happening either. President Trump saying that a deal is possible, maybe a deal to dismantle what's left of their nuclear system, but that would leave the regime in place just to fight another day.
Yeah, and that really concerns me. I mean, given the history of that regime and just, I just think that would be discouraging to the Iranian people, most of whom, the vast majority of whom, are very pleased with what they're seeing right now and hopeful. And, we've led them to this point, not quite like this, but other times when they thought the United States had their back. I think of Barack Obama, who basically left the freedom-loving demonstrators of Iran just holding the bag. And I just think at this point you can't leave the regime there.
One final question on this before we move to
Sure.
Issues taking place in the Senate. I know you agree with this, that peace through strength, and given what Israel has demonstrated in the last few days, of course, we're not there to the final aspects of this yet, but I would think that this could bring peace in the Middle East by the sheer show of their strength.
There's no question it's a deterrent. I mean, everybody in the region's got to be thinking, oh my goodness, let's not go up against these guys. The other thing that it does, it paves the way for the civilized Arab world to continue to come toward the values of the West. I don't expect that there's going to be, evangelism is going to, take Christian evangelism in the Arab world. However, I do think there are a lot of people in the region that are grateful to see Iran being isolated like this, and I think their courage to join us and to join the Abraham Accords and other more normalized relationships is really good for the country and for the world and certainly for that region.
Yeah, and for the Iranian people. I mean, we're praying for the success of Israel and for the freedom of the Iranian people that have been under the repression of this regime. Senator, I want to switch to the reconciliation bill, President Trump's one big, beautiful bill. That's now over in the Senate. The deadline that was set was the July 4th break. Are we going to make it? How's it looking?
Yeah, I think it's possible, Tony. And of course, I'm eternally optimistic. But as you know, this week now, the entire the first draft, if you will, of the bill, the entire text is pretty well done. And the Democrats are looking at it. The parliamentarians are going through it. They're looking for those, birdable things that they're scrubbing it through the bird bath to make sure that it's not policy, but solely, revenue and spending. As you know, that we have these wonky rules in the Senate. So we're going through that right now. I think probably the most encouraging thing is that Republican senators have been meeting together for hours every day, apart from everybody else, and including tonight, by the way. We have a vote here in a few minutes, and then we're going to have dinner together as Republican senators for a couple of hours and go through the text and listen to particularly the tax piece of it, Tony. That's really the heart of this whole thing. In fact, if it was up to me, we would have done just the tax piece a long time ago, and it'd be law right now while we discuss other things. But that's not the route that was chosen. So we're rolling up our sleeves and working the long hours to fine-tune it. We have to get something that 50 people will vote for, as you know. That's the trickiest part. But I think if Speaker Johnson could get one more than a no out of as many as 430 some, we ought to be able to do that as senators by the 4th of July.
Yeah. Senator Cramer, you mentioned the speaker. He's been very clear about warning about too many tweaks could create problems when it comes back over to the House. Do you foresee any sticking points at this time?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we're going to find frankly, more spending cuts. I know that won't break your heart. We have a rescissions package in front of us now that the House passed by one vote as well, that I'm sure it really breaks your heart that we're going to maybe defund NPR and public broadcasting. But having said that, we're going to make it better. It's plain and simple. We're going to make the tax cuts permanent. The SALT thing is probably one of the stickier things. But Tony, at the end of the day, this bill is going to be good enough that where if you voted for it in the House before, there's no reason for you not to vote for it this next time, because then you're given a binary choice. Is it better to pass it or not? And at that point, I think that the House will pass it as well.
Well, now is the time. If not now, when? When do we right this ship of state?
Right.
Senator Cramer, always great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate your leadership on Capitol Hill.
Thank you, Tony. My pleasure.